Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's webinar for fleet managers. Today, we're going to be going over the highly asked for and highly anticipated AOBRD vehicle motion threshold. I know you guys are just as excited as we are about this feature finally coming out. We can't wait to show you how to utilize it, make sure everything's going correct for you and your drivers. This is Leah speaking, and we also have Chelsea here.
Hello, everyone.
We're going to get started in just 1 second. Again, we're super excited about this. So what we're going to go over today is the fleet admin action items. That's you. So how to increase the speed threshold, how to check the device firmware and the Keep Truckin' app software to make sure it is the needed requirements to actually utilize the threshold. And then we're going to go over the driver action items, so how they're able to update the device firmware and the Keep Truckin' app software. And basically just they need to continue to use Keep Truckin' until the speed threshold updates. And then at the end, we will go into a Q&A where you can ask any questions that you want. Make sure if anything pops up during this time, you post it in the top right corner in that chat, and we'll be able to get to it right at the end of the webinar. All right, let's go ahead and begin. So as a fleet admin, I went ahead and logged into my Keep Truckin' dashboard just with my login credentials. What you have to do is hit admin in the top right corner. Then what you're going to do is hit company on the left, where you're able to edit the company-wide settings for your fleet. As you'll notice when you scroll down, this is part of the compliance settings. So right now you should see you are listed as AOBRD. Now what you need to do is hit edit company information in the top right corner. This is going to show you where you're able to change the threshold. Again, scroll down to where it says compliance settings. And here you'll see the slider where you're able to choose which threshold you want for all your drivers, all the trucks that are within your company, to kick them into driving. So now instead of 5 miles per hour, you can do anything between 5 up to 15. Super great for yard moves or yard jockeys in general when they really don't want an account and they're just moving slowly, moving the trucks within your yard. You can set this threshold higher, which will remove these UDEs that are probably piling up for a lot of you who are using just yard jockeys. So I'm going to go ahead and set our speed threshold to 10 miles per hour. And then you just go ahead and hit save. Now, anytime a driver starts driving, it won't automatically kick them to drive mode until they hit 10 miles per hour instead of 5 miles per hour. Super great. I know everyone loves this. Some of the requirements, as I mentioned, for this feature to actually be utilized is an updated app and the updated firmware, which is basically just the information in the actual Eld device. To ensure that you're actually in the right app version for your drivers, what you can do, this is again in the admin section of your dashboard, you can just hit drivers on the left. Now all of the drivers in your fleet are listed here on the left, and over here on the right you can see their current app version. You want to make sure they're at least at 15.0. Obviously, it's the best if you keep them all the way updated to the latest version, which is 15.1. However, to utilize this mile per hour threshold, it needs to be at least at 15.0. So these ones right here, 14.0. This one will have to be updated, and I'll get into how drivers are able to update their app in just a little bit. So again, this is where you show what app version they're currently on and which drivers need to be updated in order to utilize this feature. Now, besides the actual app version being updated, I also mentioned that the firmware of the actual ELD device needs to be updated as well. I'm sure you're wondering where are you able to check this out? Where can I find this? What you're gonna do is hit reports in the top right corner and scroll down to this under vehicles, ELD's detail report. It's a list of all ELDs and currently assigned vehicles. Go ahead and click on that, and you'll notice that the second field here is firmware version. Now, it looks like our internal fleet has a lot of firmware updates to do, but it'll list the serial number of the ELD and the firmware they're on now. So as you'll notice, these are all pretty much in red, meaning they need to be updated. I do see right here, look, we have 151005. This is the correct firmware that the device needs to be on in order to utilize the vehicle threshold. So just make sure you're not seeing any red and that you see this 51005 listed under the firmware version. Okay, so those were the two requirements needed in order to actually utilize that threshold. And then I also showed you how you go about changing the actual threshold in the admin section. But now let's get into what's required on the driver's side in order to utilize this as well. You've done everything you need to do, but let's make sure on the driver's end, they're doing what they need to do as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to my phone. And the first thing that the driver needs to do is make sure that their app is on the correct version and update it. So they'll just go to the App Store, type in Keep Truckin', and then don't click on that open button, but just click on the app itself. Now, since mine is updated to the latest version, you see right here, version 15.1, that's why it just says open. However, if there is an update needed, say they're at 14.0 right now, it'll say update where it says open at the top right under Keep Truckin' electronic logbook. So they'll just hit update. It will update the app to the latest version, and then they can go ahead and open the app. Now, the other thing, like we mentioned, is this updated firmware. So how is a driver able to figure out what firmware they're on?
Oh, and then if you guys want to check where in the app, what version they're on, you can always go to the stack icon in the top left-hand corner and scroll down to the bottom, and there you'll also see what software you're on.
Yeah, so again, version 15.1, that is the most updated one. Now, let's go ahead and figure out which firmware that the driver is on. What they'll do is go ahead and connect to whichever vehicle that they are trying to connect to. I'm going to connect to this LBB 104442. And basically, when you are trying to connect to the actual ELD device, in the top right corner, you'll hit where you go to select your vehicle. And then you'll see this little settings diagnostic knob in the bottom right, as you see. And you'll just click on that. And this gives you all of the ELD diagnostics. So the vehicle ID, the make model, the ELD serial number, and all the way here towards the bottom, you'll see firmware. So since I'm not actually connected to my ELD right now, that's why it says unknown. But as long as you have a successful pair, then you'll get an update right here to know that you're on the latest firmware. Now, you may be wondering, what do I do if it's not on the latest firmware? So usually, just so you are aware, these firmware updates, they happen over the air automatically when a driver connects. So there's not really anything you need to do to push this through in the system. However, sometimes a little thing happens where it doesn't exactly work, so it won't update. and basically all the driver needs to do is stay plugged into the ELD connected via Bluetooth with an active internet connection for about 5 minutes. It could take a little bit longer, so be patient, but it's usually around 5 minutes of just sitting with the app open, internet, and synced via Bluetooth. And then that's going to push that firmware update, and it'll update right here.
Yeah, if your drivers are using the ELD and the device and the app as prescribed on their daily routes, then these updates automatically happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're noticing that it is on a lower firmware, just do as Leah has prescribed, and it should work. And you can check in this setting right here.
Yeah, and if drivers are ever having trouble updating their firmware, they can reach out to our support, 855-434-3564, and they'll actually be able to help figure out what they're doing to make sure we are updating it to the latest firmware. Now, the last step is that drivers need to just continue using the Keep Truckin' app and device per usual, and just keep using it until that speed updates. Basically, there's some configuration in the back that needs to push through as well. So the driver just needs to continue to use the app until that goes through.
Exactly. So when you guys go ahead and change that setting on your dashboard, and then a driver goes into his vehicle and it still kicks him in to drive at 5 miles per hour, it's going to take a while for it to push that update that you just saved on your dashboard to the ELD. So we send an update through the driver's phone, and once they connect to the ELD, that last update will happen. So there isn't a specific amount of time. It just it's varying depending on the driver's location, their device, and when you've saved it. So just give it some time. And if you're curious to see, you can again always call us, and we can let you know when it has been updated.
Now, one thing that you should note is, as we mentioned, there's this configuration in the back end that does need to go through. So you may notice that all of the drivers within your fleet, the threshold's working for them. They all don't get kicked into driving until 10 miles per hour, except maybe this one driver. Now, the reason for this, Chelsea, do you want to get into this?
Oh, sure. So we had this actually just happen today where a fleet moved the vehicle motion threshold to 8 miles per hour, and all of the drivers were able to drive below 8 miles per hour and not be put into drive, except one driver in his truck. And we looked on the back information, and everything was up to date. So we believe this is a speedometer issue where his speedometer is showing a different speed than what is actually being recorded in the ECU or the truck's computer. So that might be an issue. I think it's a pretty rare case. This isn't very common, but that is a possibility. So just keep that in mind when you are performing these updates and helping your drivers. If anything happens that you think is not working properly, you can contact us, and we can go ahead and walk through all of our troubleshooting steps to make sure that the fleet manager has done what they're supposed to do, and on the driver's side and on our side.
Perfect, thank you. Lastly, I do want to mention that we have a great support article.
For those of you who don't know, that you can reach our Keep Trucking Learning Center by just clicking on that question mark in the bottom right-hand corner. And then when you click on it, it'll bring relevant articles. And if you don't see what you're looking for, click on See Articles, and it'll take you right there.
And then I'm just going to go ahead at the top and type in AOBRD. And you see right here how to change your AOBRD vehicle motion threshold for your vehicles. And we give you, just as we did in this webinar, a step-by-step on exactly how you're able to do this. So maybe you're more of a visual learner. So you can just go ahead to this support article and it walks you through all of the needed information. Just a good reminder, and you could send it out to other dispatchers who maybe don't have time to watch this whole webinar. Super simple for them to figure out how to do this.
All right. So now we're going to go ahead and move into our Q&A portion of this webinar. Please put your questions in the top right-hand chat box, and we'll be happy to get to them right now. So the first question is, well, first of all, I just want to say I love all the happy remarks in here about how they're finally excited to have this feature. We are excited for it as well. We know it's going to make driving for these drivers a little simpler or a little easier to get. The whole point is to let them do what they need to do, which is drive and get from point A to point B. The first question I have here is, how to update the ELD device if it's not 51005? Great question. We did answer that in the webinar. However, just to quickly review, if your drivers are continuously using the device and connecting with their mobile phone and driving, these updates are automatically happening. So a majority of all of our devices that are out there, we can see are on this updated version. However, if you have devices that are maybe in your office or that have never been plugged in, when they actually are plugged into the vehicle and then connected with a Bluetooth connection with a mobile phone, these updates will be pushed through to the ELD. It does take some time.
Yeah, be patient.
Yeah, and again, that is dependent. There's lots of variables there, where your location is, how good your cell service is, but these will be pushed through. So if you ever feel like this isn't happening and you feel like you've walked through all these steps, again, please go ahead and give us a call. All right, moving on. If a driver is only using the app and not the ELD, will they have the new threshold?
Yeah, so basically, if a driver is only using the app and not an ELD, they won't have a threshold at all. They would be manually inputting in their drive time, which, if they are an over-the-road driver, usually is non-compliant. So if they're required to use this ELD, they need to, or AOBRD device, excuse me, they do need to pair with it via Bluetooth, and then that pair is the only way that the basically in their mobile device, it will kick them into drive automatically. So again, if they're just using the free app and not connecting to the actual device, they won't have a threshold for driving at all.
Perfect. Moving on to Anna's question, is there any guide for drivers of this AOBRD threshold? That is a great question, Anna. We actually are going to be holding a webinar that is going to review all of our newest features for this quarter for the drivers to be aware of what they can do within the app. So that will be available, and we'll make sure to go over this. The only thing is, for a guide for drivers is, we could probably put something together, but really all the drivers have to do is keep using the device and the Keep Truckin' app as normal, and it'll just really just kick it in for them. So we don't really have anything, we don't want to put something on them that should already just happen through using it as prescribed. Mm-hmm. But if you have someone that wants specific instructions on how to perform an update, if they cannot find that, we would be more than happy to help them. Okay, we have a question here not related to the speed threshold. Let's see here. Do you guys have timelines? Oh, yep. So that's a great question. He's asking if we have timelines for other features. We actually do not have timelines for any newer features that are coming out. And that's just because we don't know how and to determine, you know, and how when we can get these out to you at a specific time. That's kind of just the name of the game, I guess.
Yeah, as you can imagine, it takes a lot of work for our engineers to build out these different systems and features. So geofencing, for example, it will be coming out. It just takes a lot of beta testing, you know, going out to the field to make sure that we're releasing it to you when it works great. We don't want to give you a half-baked feature. So we want to make sure it's working great. Everything is how it needs to be, and then we release it. So we don't have exact timelines. However, as soon as it is released, we will be hosting a webinar just like this to give you all the information for it. So just keep your eyes out. It will be coming.
Next question we have here is there not a DOT requirement for the threshold? That is a great question. So again, this webinar is specifically for fleets that are in AOBRD mode. And without getting too much into the details, the speed threshold requirement is only for ELDs. The speed threshold of the 5 miles per hour is not required for an AOBRD device. So if you are confused or want more information on that, or maybe just curious, I would definitely recommend going on to the FMCSA website and typing in AOBRD and finding some great articles that they have showcasing what an AOBRD is versus an ELD. And actually, if you would like, we can go back to the Learning Center and you can just type in AOBRD and click search. And we actually have an article on here to kind of just give you the differences between our ELD and our AOBRD mode. Because you guys use the same device, but there's different modes within it.
Perfect.
Next question we have here. If the drivers are consistently using the devices, shouldn't all of them be updated to 51005? Why must I manually do this? Is there connectivity each time they leave the lot?
So again, yes, if the drivers are using their Keep Truckin' app as well as their device correctly, everything should be syncing, sending these updates automatically. The case where we showed you how to sort of manually push this firmware update, this is sort of side cases that don't happen often. But again, you should check in that report to make sure they are all updated to the latest firmware. And if you're having any troubles doing the update, just have the driver call support and they'll be able to help them out right away. Just again, though, have your drivers use the system as prescribed and everything should update perfectly fine.
Yeah, and just a quick note, that question was by Stephanie. We were just showing you on the actual dashboard. Sorry, can you go ahead and switch really quick for us here? On the dashboard, we're just showing you where the firmware is on the actual dashboard, just to confirm which drivers are or which devices have the latest update and which ones aren't. And that could be a simple case of maybe that vehicle has been in the shop for a while or just hasn't been on the road. But once they're connected again, like you said, if they have connection and if you're seeing their logs, then you know they're probably getting our updates. All right, so I actually have another question here. When will the webinar for drivers and the new feature releases be? Great question. This is actually scheduled for June 22nd, so next week. We're coming up on the end of our quarter here. And it's going to be on June 22nd at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we do send an email out to all the drivers to go ahead and tune into this and see what is available on their app. So they will be getting an email notification if they have an email on their account, and we'll be happy to send this out actually to all fleet managers and fleet administrators so that you can see what is available for drivers.
And we will also be holding a new releases webinar for you as fleet managers too. That one is the last week of June. Correct. So look out for that invite as well.
Exactly. That one is going to be June 29th. We will also do the same thing. So we'll have a new release, like Leah said, that is more focused towards the new releases for fleet managers and admin. We also do include new features that are available on the app and for drivers, whereas for the driver webinar, we're just going to go over the new features that are related to the app or what drivers would utilize. All right, I think that was our last question here for today. If there's anything last question, go ahead and put it in. We're just going to go ahead and review that. If you do need help, feel free to email us at support.keeptruckin.com, and our phone number is 855-434-3564. And for those of you who don't know, we have chat available in the app itself for iOS or Apple devices, and it's going to be coming soon for the web dashboard, which we're looking forward to. And then lastly, you can always visit our support center at support.keeptruckin.com. And then we're going to go ahead. Oh, hold on one more minute. I have one more question here. Are there any reports that show any notes you've entered? All right, we're getting off a little off topic here. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Wanda. Are there any reports that show any notes you've entered? If you're talking about edits, you can go on to the log and click on the edit history to see what notes you've entered. And then someone also asked here, if we add trucks to the fleet, how can we make only those trucks ELD to be compliant? So to the person that just asked that question, I think I'm going to need a little bit more information about what you're asking there. So,
I think maybe you're asking if you only want to see basically the trucks where they have the device installed, and you want to just see trucks that are basically going to be needing to comply with the ELD mandate. So what you can do is actually create a group for all of those trucks or vehicles that have the device installed, and then you'll be able to view the information in your dashboard strictly based on this device-only group.
And then also to the person that just asked that question, we actually do have an email that you can send questions about regulatory affair questions. So please make sure to email us, and we can get your answer for you quickly. He says, when adding new trucks, they should be ELD prior to December 18, can stay on AOBRD. So actually, to the person asking this question, there was actually a new announcement by the FMCSA that if you had purchased AOBRDs prior to December 18th and they were installed prior to December 18th, that you can now actually purchase more AOBRD devices. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for clarifying it there in the chat box. So go ahead and give us a call, and we'd be more than happy to help you if you need more AOBRD or more devices that you can use in AOBRD mode if you did in fact purchase them prior to December 18th and have them installed. All right. Is there any chance chance ELD devices can get vehicle motion threshold like AOBRD?
Unfortunately not. So under the actual ELD mandate
And code of regulations.
this 5 miles per hour is the requirement for drivers to basically get kicked automatically into drive. So unfortunately, it would be nice. However, ELD mode is strictly 5 miles per hour, which is why under your compliance settings, we don't even have that slider for you.
And Christina, I completely understand where this is coming from. The only way that would become a chance is if they change the law. And then we would be more than happy to make that an update for everyone.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think that was our last question for today. Thank you so much for joining us here. We do love having these webinars for you. So if there's any topic or any suggestions that you guys have for these webinars, we are all ears and we would love to hear from you guys. We are here and that's why we do them, because of you guys, and we want to make sure that you're informed and compliant and safe out there on the roads. So have a great day and we'll see you next week.
Have a great weekend.